being recorded.
So, welcome everyone in our first kind of all-hands meeting of all LoopBack maintainers, both from IBM and from our awesome community. And as I mentioned in the GitHub issue where I kind of invited all of us to join, I would like to start with a kind of like icebreakers, a bit of free-form discussion so that we can learn more about each other. And I was thinking what would be a good question to start this discussion. And I'm not sure how about you, but I'm a big fan of a good meal. And back in Strong Loop days, we even were like cooking together. So I was thinking maybe we can share what is our favorite meal and maybe why. And maybe we can go just do a quick round. And maybe we can start with a short introduction of ourselves as well, because this is the first time we meet in person. So maybe just say your name, maybe where are you joining from, and what's your favorite meal. So I'll start. My name is Miroslav Bajtos, difficult to pronounce if you are English speaker, and I'm calling in from Czech Republic in Europe. So it's 4:30 for me at the moment. And my favorite meal is kimchi, which I discovered just a few days ago. It's a South Korean pickled vegetables with chili, and traditionally there is also a fish sauce in it. And I really like the combination of a savory flavor. It reminds me of pickled cabbage, which is like our traditional meal here in Czech Republic, but with the extra kick of chili. It's just awesome. So if you haven't tried it before, I highly recommend to give it a try.
It's kimchi?
Kimchi, yes.
Is that Korean kimchi?
Yes.
Oh, I see.
So it's my new discovery this week. Raymond, can you go next, please?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name is Raymond Fan, and same as Miroslav. So we are the starters of the LoopBack project, a Strong Loop, and we continue to work on this project for a while. So I'm calling from the San Francisco Bay Area in California. Food-wise, because I originally from China, so mostly still traditional Chinese food, like things like dumplings or Chinese hamburgers. Yeah, so whenever we have a chance, I can show you around. Yeah, that's all for now.
Thanks, Raymond. Can you pick the next person, please, to speak?
Maybe I'm seeing like Dom on the list, so maybe Dom, you can go.
My name is Dominic Emmett, and I joined the LoopBack last January. And my favorite food, I like a whole bunch of food, but I like spaghetti, but it's not too exciting. But one of my favorite snacks is wasabi peas. It was so hard to find that in Toronto. I would ask everywhere because someone bought it for me once and I could never find it. But yesterday, when I was doing my groceries at the corner store there, I found little cups of them. Someone was selling it on a certain corner of the aisle, so I bought a whole bunch. Taste your nasal passages, right? So
that's illegal stocking at this point.
Yes.
I actually find it in Loblaws too, but in the bulk section, so you can scoop yours. But now it's not a very good idea to do that. But it seems like it's quite easily be found.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name is Dinah Lau, and same as Dom, I'm in Toronto. After we're practicing the social distancing, I suddenly crave, there's a dish made by my grandmother. Well, she passed many years ago, but I still remember she made is using fried peanuts with eggs and with some mixed veggies. So well, I haven't eaten it for a while, so we need to find where we can find the peanuts in at home, and so it seems to be pretty similar as I remember. Yeah, a new dish to discover.
And kung pao style, like kung pao chicken.
No, it's just normal peanuts well, fried with eggs and yeah, mixed veggies. Very simple dish.
Okay.
I will pick Agnes because yeah.
Okay. So hi, I'm Agnes Lin, and I'm in Toronto as well. And I'm originally from Taiwan. And my current favorite meal is jerk chicken, a Jamaican food. I like the spicy kind. Yeah, and I will pick Rifa. I think Rifa already introduced himself.
Yeah.
We didn't. Rifa, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, I am Rifa. I am from Singapore. And for food that I actually like a very simple meal. Just some granola with some either milk or kind of like a cereal kind of compost. Really simple meal can make at home, especially with the social distancing. And so it's really nice and sweet to make.
Cool. I love the variety of food we are discussing
I
here.
like Singapore food.
And can you pick next person to speak, please, Rifa?
Okay. Has Matt speak?
Oh, I think I'm next.
All right.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Very
can
well.
hear you well.
Awesome. My name is Matthew. I became a contributor quite recently. I'm based I'm based inside of Los Angeles, where we are all currently locked down. So my favorite food right now is probably one of those things I can't eat because you can't go get it. It's soft tofu soup.
Oh, that's a Korean style.
I live right outside of Koreatown, and I have been craving it for 2 weeks, but for now I'm being good and staying inside.
Yeah. So is LA Koreatown nearby the Disneyland?
Disneyland, no. Disneyland's about 40 miles away from here.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I remember every time we went to Anaheim and there's a Korean town nearby. There are quite a few very good Korean restaurants out there.
And I think everybody has gone that I can see on the list here.
I
Unless
think
get people-
So we have one more.
I think that's Danny, right?
So hi, I'm Danny. I'm living in Germany, and my favorite food is Chinese food.
Cool, thanks. And so here, everybody's spoken. Now we can feel like getting something to eat, or at least I feel like that. And okay, I know why. One of the next things I wanted to discuss in this call is to share with all of us the status update. How is LoopBack doing, and what are our plans in the core team? And I would like to ask Diana to present.
Sorry, I was on mute. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes. Cool. I'm trying out the the new dual monitor in my office, so okay, maybe I should just do it like this. Okay, some project updates. So the first one that I would like to share is thank you to all the maintainers. So I just make a chart that's based on the merge PRs that we have in LoopBack Next only. I think there are some other repos that have maintainers having some contribution, but like for this one, we're only focusing on LoopBack Next repo. So you can see from January, February, and March, we're still not done yet. So we're seeing there are a pretty good percentage of the community, the PRs merge coming from the community. So And I think that's something that we really, really wants to see, because we cannot do this alone. So thank you very much first. And so, for example, for January, we have 39%, and then February, we have 27%. For March, I think so far we have about 11%. And so given the dates that we're in today, and I think is pretty good. So thank you very much.
Even in March, we have quite a few community PRs on the review, so I think the pipeline is still looking good.
Yeah. And the second slide that I want to share is our goals or plans for 2020. The number one goal that we want to do is to enable as many LoopBack 3 users to migrate to LoopBack 4 as soon as possible. One of the reasons is LoopBack 3 will go end of life by the end of this year. So we hope that we can get provide more help, as much help as possible, to get the people from using LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4. And so as you can see, and then we have a very key focus in completing the migration guide. And this will continue to be our focus in Q2. And also we want to provide some toolings to make the migration easier or not so painful, and also to fill in some of the feature priority gaps that we have from when moving from LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4. And one main thing that we want to do this year is to have LoopBack 4 to be integrated to IBM API Connects. In the current version of the API Connects, we have LoopBack 3, but because also of the end of life story, and then we also wanted to change it to LoopBack 4. So I think so far Deepak has done some work, and I think so far the outlook is pretty good. We still need to do some more testing to make sure that it's good. And then Raymond also created the open API enhancer for that. And I think some of the groundwork is done by Danny. So thank you very much. And then the second goal is to keep adopting latest technology to stay relevant. So some of the areas that we have looked at and create some POCs, for example, the messaging style and the pop-up event style. I think Raymond also had some of the POC for how to integrate with Kafka, how to use WebSockets and things like that. And so those are the things that we would like to also continue to explore. So we have the POC already, and so maybe we'll see how we can do it in a more real life case. And also we'll continue to have more cloud native integration. So last year, I think we have added some health check, some distributed tracing, some logging. And so that's something that we would hope to explore this year too. So if you're interested in any of the area, feel free to chime in. And the next one is the native support for GraphQL. We currently have some sort of wrappers for GraphQL. So given we have the REST APIs, and then you can also have the GraphQL APIs. And this is a little bit different from the native support that we want, because some of the information might be lost. But so that's something that we also want to look into as well. And of course, the Juggler Linux story. And then the last goal we want is, this is why you're here, is we want to nurture our community and also encourage more contributors, as we have growing user base. So for last month, we have about 69,000 downloads on NPM.js. As we're growing our user base, I think we really need to grow the contributor community at the same time, because otherwise, because there are only a handful of us, and so we also need to rely on the community to helping each other out, and also to accelerate the development process as well. In terms of April, and we also want to continue with the migration guide, and so as much as we can, and to finish the model from model definition to REST APIs. So we just have the latest CLI added for creating the APIs, REST APIs, from when you specify the model and also the database, the data source. So we hope to finish that with the edit the document, then we can call it done. And then of course the API connects and LoopBack integration. And if you have been noticing, so we have also looking for community contribution section in each of our milestone issue. So those are the things that we want to have get it done in the shorter term. So so it doesn't mean that if you want to contribute, you have to pick one of them. But there we also mark some of the things for using the help wanted label and also the good first issue labels. But then those are the things in particular that we want to see in the shorter term. And also you might also notice that when we're doing planning, we want to have some more transparency and also ask for our user to chime in as well. So our planning, the milestone planning, also the roadmap planning usually begins with the PR. So look for the monthly milestone label and also the roadmap label in the PR, the list of PRs. Then you'll probably see what is our plan. And if you think there's something that maybe we miss or something that you would like to add, feel free to add the comment there too. So I think that's all from me. Anything else from you, Miroslav, Raymond, and others?
Yeah, maybe like each of us from the core team can briefly go through the near-term focus they have to give our community maintainers some ideas which areas we're exploring.
Sure.
So I can start from myself. So one of the observations I see for the LoopBack community is people often ask how I can use this and that. For example, if I want to use type ORM or I want to use some job scheduling capabilities. So typically in these cases, there's a third party library or whatever available. People just don't know if that could be directly leveraged by the LoopBack framework, or they have to do a lot of integration work to make it happen. So in the past, we tend to normalize a lot of patterns and have LoopBack's opinion on top of everything. And I want to change that direction a little bit recently, basically try to embrace as many external capabilities as possible and try to provide or surface their capability in the LoopBack context within the LoopBack program model. So to make it concrete, I created a couple of extensions to integrate with different things recently for LoopBack 4. One of them is a POC to bring type ORM into LoopBack. Another one we just landed as job scheduling capability with cron library from the node username. So there are a couple of things I really care. One is when you bring in a third-party library, so there are typically a few barriers you want to overcome and make them sort of native to the LoopBack 4 developers. So one of them is how you provide a dependency injection-based configuration so that whenever you a library is being used, there typically some sort of configuration is involved, and most library does not have any elegant way, but just provide a option for the factory or for the constructor, right? So so one pattern I use consistently is to make them really configurable and injectable. Use the LoopBack context idea and the dependent injection capability. So second one is to really bring extensibility stories for these third-party libraries. One example is, say, for example, AGV, right? So AGV has the customer keywords, customer formats. So each of the libraries sort of have a little bit extensibility, but not in a very consistent fashion. So when I bring a third party into LoopBack 4, I typically try to transform that into the LoopBack 4 extensibility story, utilizing the extension point, extension pattern, so that people can contribute these additional artifacts for the third party library using the LoopBack way. Another example is when we do the logging extension for Winston, and Winston has formatters and other artifacts that is supposed to extend the capability or make them customizable for the logging facility. Right? So we transform these things into different extension points with well-defined contract to add these extensions to enrich the accessibility for the third-party library. So that's number two. Number three is try to simplify the program model for some third-party a little. For example, TypeOM allows you to create a repository or retrieve a connection by code, right? And one thing I did in the POC is define some decorators to perform the dependency injection. For example, in any of the LoopBack 4 controller, there's a possibility to inject a TypeOM connection or TypeOM repository so that if you really like the TypeOM program model and you want to use TypeOM within a LoopBack 4 application, you get a fairly native bridge from LoopBack into that particular framework. So I'm trying to do a little bit more in that area and use that as a way to showcase how we can transform and shadowly bring in more third-party capabilities into the LoopBack framework. And I hope that becomes a role model for our community and our user to follow so that they can quickly bring in other capabilities into LoopBack without waiting for anything else. Of course, there are a lot of unexplored areas, and I think that's one potential direction we can get a lot of help from you guys, the community maintainers. Yeah, so that's my kind of near-term focus at this point. So I'm going to pass that to Melsoft. And so if you guys have any questions, feel free just to bring up. All right, so we can probably leave the Q&A toward the end. So maybe Melsoft, you can go next.
Sure. So myself, I would like to keep staying focused on the migration story because I feel that's very pressing now, and we need to complete it as soon as possible. But at the same time, I'm also thinking about like some long-term visions and kind of have them in background. And I would like to build on top of what Raymond said. The thing which I'm thinking about a lot is what to do with our ORM framework, with Juggler and all the connectors, because at one hand, they are very well integrated with the framework and they are easy to use for the simple use cases. But once you get off the common path and you want to use things that are specific to your database, for example, in MongoDB, you have all those extended operators which allow you to atomically increase a value or insert into a list or whatever. In PostgreSQL, you have binary JSON data type and you can query nested JSON fields. And every database has its own specialties. Then it becomes quite difficult to do this in LoopBack. And also because the size of our team, I find it quite difficult to support all these different features in every database in a way that's still like consistent with LoopBack. So, and where this is building on what Raymond said is that if it was easier to use TypeORM or Mongoose or Prism or Objection.js or any other ORM with LoopBack 4, then maybe there will be less pressure on us LoopBack maintainers to support all those extra database specific features in our connectors, and instead we can focus more on the on supporting the 80% cases, which are the same across all databases. And then if people need something specific to their database, then maybe they can choose a different ORM and everything will still work well for them. So that's one idea I have in my head for quite a long time, and I'm kind of investigating it. And this also brings us to LoopBack Next story. The idea of LoopBack Next is to modernize our code base in Juggler and in connectors, because at the moment it's like ES5 style, so we are using callbacks. We don't even use class keywords. There is no async await, then it's quite difficult to work with that code. And the idea is to bring it to what we have in LoopBack Next. That means TypeScript, async await, classes, just make it easier to use. And we need to kind of like juggle the priorities, how much time to spend on integrating with third-party ORMs versus how much time to spend on rewriting Juggler and all the connectors we have. So that's another theme I'm thinking about. And for shorter term, I also noticed recently when I was doing a bit of support on Stack Overflow and also to our colleagues at IBM, that it can be quite confusing to understand how exactly to inject different artifacts, especially when services are involved, or sometimes people use a wrong binding name. It's not clear whether it should start with lowercase or uppercase, perhaps. And then the application fails with binding not found error, and the users are often confused and don't know what to do. So I was thinking about adding a bit of I don't know how to put it, a bit of cleverness into our error reporting. And if the binding is not found, then maybe we can try to predict what the user was trying to accomplish. And if there is a different binding that exists and that seems to be related to what the user was trying to accomplish, then maybe we can offer a hint in the error message. So let's say if you try to inject services.geocoder provider and you edit provider suffix in your binding key, then it's not found. But perhaps we can tell the user, hey, perhaps you wanted to inject services.geocoder without the provider suffix, and then people will know what to try, and there will be less issues open or questions posed to Stack Overflow. So that's for me. Raymond, what's your idea? Should we go like first across the core team members and then ask Rifamat and Danny, or just?
Yeah, either way is fine. So I think at this phase, we can just briefly talk about what we have in mind and we want to work on or being so to give our new members some ideas like how the whole picture look like and which direction we try to go to, sort of as inspiration period to help each other to understand like what we care and which training technology we want to use. Of course, like we would like to hear our community members' opinions, not only just their own use cases, but also their interest in technology and in different integration areas. So we can probably have some sort of like a synergy. So if we find out some good synergy for certain areas, then we can probably give them more priorities than something else.
Sounds good. So I guess Dom, can you go next?
You call me out?
Yeah, Dom, if you can share like what would you like to work on in the near future, or what you are thinking about, which areas of LoopBack we should improve, or what technology to embrace.
I guess maybe in the cloud areas, right, where we're working with microservices and stuff like that, right? Like we've started with Raymond was able to add the apps, Stack and stuff, and its usage in Cabanero. I'm actually looking at someone's question regarding Cabanero and how it intertwines with Codewind and stuff like that. So So anything in the area, in that area, to make things easier for developers. Raymond's done a lot of great work with that so far, but yeah, that's one area that just me. Yeah, that's it for me. I didn't really prepare anything today.
Thanks, them. And who's next? Agnes?
I think there's a lot improvement we can do for the documentation because right now we're sharing a lot of LoopBack 3 docs with LoopBack 4. But like they have different formats, so I think yeah, that's the area then we can improve next, I guess.
That's a great point.
For me. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Agnes. And Tara, would you like to add anything?
One other thing I'm trying to do is to use LoopBack to build something like, for example, the GitHub metrics. And so in that, and then I can try to discover what are the missing examples that we can add, or what are things that we can, if I need to find out from you all, and then probably our users will also struggle on that too. So that's something that I would like to focus.
Thanks. And I see that Jenny joined as well. Can you hear us, Jenny?
Yes, hello everyone. Yeah, sorry for joining late. So yeah, recently I'm still working on the authentication and authorization migration from LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4. And last month I created an migration example which migrates the access control system, the example system from LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4. And I think in that migration guide, we covered most of the core mechanism of authentication and authorization in LoopBack 4, like how to build the equivalent access control system as what we have in LoopBack 3, and how to also and also about how to deal with those built-in models. I mean, those authentication-related models from LoopBack 3. And from this month, I'm still focusing on some leftover improvements to be covered in the authentication migration. And also, I see that Deepak is another team member from LoopBack, and he's working on the migration of the passport from LoopBack 3 to 4, and he also has an example for the OAuth 2 passport authentication. And I think in the next few weeks, my focus will still be the migration guide, especially for the authentication and authorization system. And I'm also involved in some OpenAPI spec improvement, PRs and issues, like how to automatically add some custom OpenAPI spec to the LoopBack 4 application. I think a community member called Douglas, I don't know if he's in this meeting, probably not. I think he submits multiple PRs to implement the OpenAPI spec enhancer. And thank you, Miroslav and Raymond, for participating in the code review. I think we recently merged some OpenAPI enhancer PRs to allow people to contribute to OpenAPI spec more flexibly. And yeah, thanks, Miroslav. That's mostly what I've been working on recently. And
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. And I guess now it's time to turn to you, our community maintainers. So maybe Matt, can you start, please?
Sure thing. Having looked a little bit over the monthly milestone, there are a couple of things involving involving OpenAPI and some of the decorators that I'm definitely interested in digging into a little bit deeper. I also want to plan out possibly some next steps for enhancements to the convenience decorators that I proposed a few months ago. But I'll put more, once I've had an opportunity to think a little bit more about it, I actually want to write up an issue and discuss it in Slack first, because it's going to involve dealing with more parts of LoopBack that I'm not familiar with yet.
Okay, cool. Please do reach out. We are happy to help.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
To understand it.
I'm also a little bit, it's kind of a busy time at work right now.
Okay.
So it's unfortunately been on the back burner a little bit longer than I would have liked. But we are planning on building out some new backend services in LoopBack based off of some of that work we've done recently.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Cool. And thank you for your inspiration. So I recently added a couple convenience decorators to enable the file upload and the download capabilities to make the decoration of such attributes easy to understand and use.
I saw that. That was actually it was really awesome to see, you know, to see somebody take that idea and expand on it and make it even more useful.
Yep, that's great.
Cool. Rifa? Think about and would like to work on in the near future, if anything?
Okay. So I've been looking at what the LoopBack 4 offers and what the documentation presents to the users. So I think the main focus I would continue to mainly focus on the documentation side, as I think that is probably the main part, the main source of friction for user adopting LoopBack 4. So I think if we can make the documentation just right, I think we can ramp up the amount of user adoption and make the experience a lot better for our users. And also, I'm also thinking about doing some further community outreach. As you may know, some projects like Nest.js, they have, for example, YouTube tutorials and so on. I think it would be a great opportunity if we can do something similar, expand with fill up that gap and expand to these users who may prefer a tutorial, a more hands-on tutorial with someone providing this kind of video guides. So I think that may help LoopBack 4 in its adoption and making it much easier for new users to use.
Yeah, I think that's very pressing need to make the documentation much more easy to follow and comprehend. And the reality for us is most of us are backend developers, and we're not really good at telling stories, even though we're really trying hard to present as many material as possible. But I think the way to tell a story, we need a lot of help from folks like you, not only just to make the knowledge accessible to our potential users, and also improve the documentation side so that make it natural to follow the typical development life cycle to find whatever techniques or recipes they need, not only just make the documentation site a kitchen sink place to dump all the information. So we had quite a few team discussions around that area. So maybe at some point, Diana can share that feedback with you and work closely with you, and you can give us some good ideas. What are the most pressing change we need to make so that we can have a good skeleton or good structure in place that we can get more contributions to make it better and better.
All right. Yeah, I believe that's a really great idea. Yeah. Sorry, Diana. Did I cut you off there?
Oh no. Actually, we now that Microsoft created that loopback governance repo, maybe we can use that as the discussion like platform as well, or we can chat on Slack as well too.
Okay, sounds great. So if I may just inject one more point, I think because Loopback 4 has advertises all these different Node.js components, different packages that people can use individually. I think we may not be advertising it as enough. For example, the Loopback context. I think
Yeah,
we need
that's
to
a
be
good
able to
point.
advertise it as an individual package more than just using it as part of Loopback itself. I think it can be quite useful for users who want to just use those components.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic idea and pretty much aligned with some of the thoughts we have here because we built a pretty solid platform with very good extensibility and that base, that foundation can be used by a lot of other libraries to make their frameworks or libraries much more modernized and flexible. We kind of under promote the idea of the platform, even though we when you start to use Loopback and you dig into the code base, you kind of realize the value of the core. But from both documentation side, blogging material wise, slides, tutorials, videos, it's still kind of on the hook per se, even though we put some good efforts to create a series of tutorials and build very isolated examples to show without dragging other integration capabilities, user trends from the framework as a wholesale, the core modules already have a pretty solid value. And if you do a side comparison between the context modules versus the TypeScript dependency injection frameworks, you can see we have pretty solid features that's being driven by the usage of the library to build the whole framework, as well as all the integration capabilities we present as extensions in the module. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. That's one of the areas we should, promote more so that the community can recognize that hidden gem and make good use of it.
Couldn't agree anymore, Raymond. I think that's definitely the way to go.
Thanks.
Okay, I think that's all from me.
Cool. Thank you, Rifa. It was great. And Danny?
So I'm using LoopBack 3 for many years and at work and also for personal projects. And I'm still on migration to LoopBack 4. And yeah, we have around about 200 models, which were migrated without CLI, mainly with some bash script or something else. So on the loopback side, we are now almost ready to go. Almost 2 features are missing. So there's has many through, which is missing. So I'm still working on this pull request, and it would be helpful to get some feedback on it to make it working. And the second part is we have a custom extension to support field level access control to give different roles different access to the models. But our main problem currently is the migration of Angular. So my hope was to find something which is a drop-in replacement for this loopback SDK builder. But all frameworks I found yet are something different, and I don't want to rewrite the full front end. So this is currently the main stopper to migrate the Angular application. So it's not a problem of the backend. Backend is almost working, but the front end is currently the main part.
So, Lily, you have been investigating the two SDK, like the client generator libraries. So those, either of those doesn't fit your needs. You still need to have a lot of rewrite.
Yeah, these SDKs are very cool. They're working, but they are totally different than the LoopBack SDK builder. So when I use these ones, I need to rewrite the front end in many places, and I don't have the time for a half year to refactor the whole front end. So it would be better to have something which is more like the SDK builder. Yeah, but I didn't found it. So I know how it works with this ng OpenAPI again. I know how it works with the OpenAI generator SDK, but I don't know yet what is the best migration path.
It makes me
So
wonder.
I feel like, at least from what you are describing, so you are more looking for some proxy or like a controller representation on the client side to represent the APIs in a more organized fashion. For example, with LoopBack 4, right? So we describe all the endpoints using controller classes. And then when you look at each of the controller classes, you sort of have a good picture at what kind of API capabilities are being exposed. So maybe it will be really useful, like we could have some COI tool or whatever that can so either look at the open API spec or look at the controller declaration and create a corresponding client-side class representing the client library, which gives you sort of like strongly type access to the backend APIs following that convention. So this is a little bit similar to the idea we have open API connector, right? And we use the Swagger client library from the Swagger community. And that kind of just convert each of the endpoint into sort of API for the client code, but it's not fully strongly typed because it's a plain JavaScript library. It does not have all the TypeScript interface or models, things like that. But I know like the SDK builder in the past sort of follow that pattern. In a way, the client side, you would see the opposite side of the controller. And you can pretty much call the method as a regular JavaScript method to access the REST APIs. But the other code generators mostly just convert the REST endpoint into a client-side call, which is a flattened structure now mimicking how you organize the API at the backend. I'm not sure if that's something you would like to explore.
Yeah, in the first step, I would like to just replace the backend. So migrating LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4 and make it behave exactly as the same way as before.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe just generate the SDK for the front end in a different way, but with the same controller services or whatever as I'm used from the LoopBack SDK builder. This will be really helpful. So I have only one place which is changed, and then can refactor the front end later. But yeah, if you have any ideas for that.
Yeah, so when I create the LB4 Open API command, I sort of have a similar idea how we can potentially generate the Open API client in a similar fashion as we generate the controller skeleton from the Open API spec. So we can reuse quite a bit of code there because in that command, we already generate all the TypeScript classes and the type definitions for all the schemas. and we also generate the classes representing the skeleton code for the controller classes. So I'm wondering if we can just reuse some of the logic to create a client-side library, and instead of creating controller classes, we can probably create some like a proxy client-side classes, which is similar to the controller structure. So I'm not sure if we add that kind of capability would be useful for the front end to adopt LoopBack.
I'm currently trying a different approach. I'm trying to rebuild the LoopBack SDK builder in some way. So LoopBack SDK builder is starting LoopBack 3, investigating, collecting some metadata, and generating the SDK. And I'm currently trying to use the OpenAPI specification to discover the same metadata as before and use the same code from LoopBack SDK builder to have it as a drop-in replacement.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess from our point of view, is that in the LoopBack 3 we had SDK for Angular, and there was the Angular SDK builder, then there was SDK for Android and for iOS, and it became too much work to maintain them. So we decided for LoopBack 4 it will be easier for us to kind of delegate the responsibility of generating client SDKs to a code generator like Swagger CodeGen. And this is what but we didn't realize that it will mean that when somebody is upgrading from LoopBack 3 to LoopBack 4, then not only they will need to upgrade their backend, but they will need to upgrade their frontend as well, which is what you run into. So maybe it means we need to reconsider this. And I think your idea, Danny, of using a LoopBack SDK builder and kind of upgrading it to use LoopBack 4 or OpenAPI spec metadata instead of LoopBack 3 remoting metadata, I think is definitely a good idea. So if you need any help to understand better the metadata from LoopBack 4 and maybe even LoopBack 3 and how it matches one another, then I know quite a lot about this area, so I can help you. Just ping me on Slack.
Yeah, so in that context, we recently have a POC try to expose more metadata from the LoopBack backend. So the initial purpose was to visualize the LoopBack 4 application so you can understand how the context hierarchy look like, how the dependency injection get glued together. So I think to support your use cases, if the OpenAPI spec itself does not have all the metadata you need, probably you can follow the same pattern to extend the inspection capability from the backend. Then you can get a JSON representation of say you see all the controller structure, all the corresponding OpenAPI artifacts around that, so that you can mimic that information on the client side to facilitate the construction of the SDK builder. Yeah, so that could be one direction we can look into.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll try this and ask my questions.
Cool. Good luck.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess we did the floor round and everybody had a chance to speak. And we are running out of time almost. Is there anything else to say before we leave? Any feedback for us, or I don't know, anything?
Yeah, one question or one thought. There are some of the community pull requests which are laying around very long time. So for me, it's always a question: is this a feature which will not be supported, or maybe there's no time from you main developers to have a look into it? And I think it's very frustrating for the community that people who contribute need to push the pull request several times until someone is looking into it, and I think it takes too long for reviewing.
Yeah,
I think that's a very valid concern, and we kind of struggle to get a right balance between the quality of the PR versus all the back and forth review process we have to go through. And to be frank, definitely we also don't have enough bandwidth to be super responsive to some of the PRs. So from my personal perspective, because first of all, it's an open source project and we manage the code with Git. So we probably have to think about what's a reasonably good, addition or bug fix. And if it meets all the baseline criteria, then we can probably still keep some room for improvement in the future and do that in follow-up PRs to speed up the streamline processing. On the other hand, we probably need to spend more time to help the contributors to get what we want. And sometimes I even step in to help them to fix some of the logistic issues. For example, the commit log or like squashing or rebasing. And I figure out workflow works very well for me. So basically, when you check out the main LoopBack repository from a strong organization, you can add the PR repository as an upstream so that you can pull in their change into your day-to-day workspace as a local branch. Then you can pretty much, interact with the contribute by code in some cases. You can even create like suggestions as PRs on top of their PRs, or with their permission, you can pretty much push your change back to the PR. So basically, you work together with the community contributor more closely instead of like forcing them to learn all the conventions or logistics to just get one simple fix to be landed. And of course, for folks like you guys, for a little bit like a longer term engagement, it's definitely useful to learn some of the conventions, and feel free to reach out if you don't understand certain things or you think that PR has been installed for some time. Just proactively ping us because sometimes we just forget about that. So we don't have to guess like if we like that PR now or just to be transparent, to be frank. So we will definitely try our best to accommodate all the review process and land the PR as soon as possible. Yeah, it's we know that's a struggle for some time now, and even internally for the core team, sometimes like the PR has been sitting there for too long.
Yeah, I would like to add my perspective. I try to prioritize reviewing community contributed pull request high, because I know from my own experience how bad it feels when you submit a PR and then you wait for a week or two until somebody at least acknowledges that the PR has been opened. I have one sitting in Lerna for quite a few days by now. And the thing is, there are quite a few PRs coming our way. And myself, I usually have around 200 unread notifications on GitHub, unread notifications, and like 15 community pull requests waiting for my attention. So it's quite difficult to go through all of those pull requests in time, which is not a solution. It's kind of like just trying to explain our situation. So if you are waiting for a pull request, or if you see a pull request which you think somebody should take a look at, and it has been waiting for too long, then please ping us on Slack. I think that's the best short-term improvement we can make. If you can just ping us, and that way you will remind us, hey, this is a pull request which has been waiting for too long.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Anything else? Any other feedback? Well, with that, let's call it end then. Thank you all for joining. And I'd like to organize another meeting in 4 weeks approximately, so we can see again soon.
That sounds good. Maybe next time we could, instead of discussing meals, that was a lot of fun. We can maybe discuss hacks that we're using now in self-isolation.
Okay.
Well, thanks for hosting.
I make all of my own bread, so I'm good. I'm good for a while.
That's awesome.
All right, everybody is becoming a chef at this point. I think finally, I think we still appreciate you guys so much, and we look forward to working more closely with you guys, and hopefully this internal community will grow and grow. So next time we would like to see more new faces as well.
Okay.
Thank you very much
Bye,
for
everybody.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.